The human mind is a magnificent architect of dreams. Yet it is also a master of the most sophisticated prison ever designed, the prison of someday. We live in an era where information is more accessible than at any point in human history. We can learn how to build a business, how to master a craft, or how to transform our health with the click of a button. Yet, despite this abundance of knowledge, there is a pervasive epidemic of stagnation. We are drowning in how-to but starving for do. The power of taking action is the only bridge that exists between the person you are today and the person you are destined to become. Without that bridge, your goals, no matter how noble or well-researched, remain mere ghosts haunting the hallways of your mind. We often mistake thinking for doing. We spend weeks researching the best running shoes, months planning the perfect business model, and years waiting for our confidence to reach a level that feels safe. But safety is an illusion that keeps us small. Real confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the child of action. You do not get confident to take action. You take action to get confident. Consider the nature of a seed. A seed contains the entire blueprint for a towering oak tree. It has the potential, the DNA, and the drive to reach for the sky. But if that seed remains in a dry, dark cupboard, it will never be anything more than a hard, small casing. It must be thrust into the dirt. It must endure the pressure of the earth, the darkness of the soil, and the chaotic intrusion of water to trigger its transformation. Taking action is the equivalent of planting yourself in the arena of life. It is often messy, uncomfortable, and involves a period of time where no one sees the progress you are making beneath the surface. However, that planting is the only way to activate the power within you. Many of us are waiting for a sign, for a mentor to hand us a map, or for the economy to shift in our favor. We are waiting for the perfect time, not realizing that the perfect time is a mirage that recedes as we approach it. The only time that has ever existed for the purpose of changing your life is the present moment. Every second spent in deliberation over a decision you have already made in your heart is a second stolen from your legacy. One of the greatest enemies of action is the cult of preparation. We tell ourselves we are working when we are actually just preparing to work. We attend seminars, we read books, we listen to podcasts, and we color code our planners. While these things have value, they can easily become productive procrastination. They give us the dopamine hit of progress without the risk of failure. When you read a book about success, you feel like you are succeeding. But real success requires the friction of reality. It requires putting your ideas into the world where they can be criticized, rejected, or ignored. This friction is what polishes you. You cannot sharpen a blade on a velvet pillow. You need the grindstone. The power of action lies in its ability to provide immediate feedback. When you act, the universe talks back to you. It tells you if your idea has merit, if your technique needs adjustment, or if you are heading in the wrong direction entirely. Reflection is necessary, but reflection without action is just a circular conversation with yourself. You can study the mechanics of a bicycle for a decade, but you will learn more about balance in 10 seconds of pedaling and falling than you ever would in a library. We must also dismantle the idea that we need to see the entire staircase before we take the first step. This need for certainty is a survival mechanism, an ancient part of our brain trying to protect us from the lions of social rejection or financial loss. But in the modern world, the greatest risk is not failure. It is irrelevance and regret. When you wait to see the end of the road before you start driving, you never leave the driveway. Action functions like the headlights of a car at night. They only illuminate about 200 feet in front of you, but that is enough to drive across an entire continent. You only need enough light for the next step. Once you take that step, the light moves with you, revealing the next 200 feet. This iterative process is how every great empire was built and every great life was forged. It is a series of next steps taken in faith. The power of action is that it creates its own light. It generates a momentum that clears the fog of doubt. Furthermore, we must address the heavy weight of the start. Starting is the highest energy-consuming part of any endeavor. In physics, static friction. The force that keeps an object at rest is always greater than kinetic friction, the force that resists an object already in motion. This means the hardest part of your journey will always be the first 5 minutes, the first day, or the first week. Once you are in motion, it takes significantly less energy to keep going. This is why the most successful people in the world focus on lowering the bar to entry. They don't try to write a whole book in a day. They commit to writing 1 paragraph. They don't try to lose 50 pounds in a week. They commit to walking for 10 minutes. By breaking the grand vision into microscopic actions, you bypass the brain's fear centers. You make the action so small that it is harder to quit than it is to continue. The power of action is not always found in the giant leap. It is most often found in the relentless tiny movements that refuse to stop. It is the drip of water that eventually carves a canyon through solid rock. Not because the water is powerful, but because it is persistent and it is always in motion. As we move forward, we must realize that our identity is not fixed. We are not procrastinators or dreamers by nature. We are those things by habit. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you want to be a writer, you don't wait for a publishing contract, you write. Each page is a vote for your identity as a writer. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't wait for $1 million in funding, you sell something. Each transaction is a vote for your identity as a builder. The more you act, the more you convince yourself of your own agency. You begin to see yourself as a doer, and once that shift happens in your identity, your potential becomes limitless. The weight of the world's expectations starts to feel lighter because you are grounded in the evidence of your own efforts. You no longer need external validation because you have internal proof. You have the scars, the wins, and the memories of the days you chose to move when everyone else chose to sit. This is the foundation of an unshakable life. Once the initial excitement of a new beginning fades, we enter what many call the corridor of uncertainty. This is the space where the novelty has worn off, the results haven't yet manifested, and the sheer weight of the work begins to press down on your shoulders. This is where most people quit. They mistake the lack of immediate reward for a lack of progress. But the power of taking action is most potent when it is applied in the dark, when no one is watching, and when the finish line feels like a fantasy. We must understand that action is not a straight line upward. It is a series of plateaus and breakthroughs. During a plateau, it feels like your actions are yielding nothing. You are going to the gym, but the scale isn't moving. You are making the sales calls, but the contracts aren't being signed. You are practicing the instrument, but the music still feels disjointed. However, beneath the surface, silent growth is occurring. You are building the latent heat required for a phase change. Just as water stays liquid at 99 degrees Celsius and only turns to steam at 100 degrees Celsius, your consistent actions are heating your potential. That final degree of effort doesn't do all the work. It simply unlocks the energy of every degree that came before it. To navigate this middle ground, we must reevaluate our relationship with failure. In a world obsessed with highlight reels and overnight successes, we have been conditioned to see failure as a sign to stop. We treat it as a bruise to our ego rather than a tool for our evolution. But if you study the anatomy of any great achievement, you will find that it is built on a foundation of failed attempts. Action is a process of elimination. Every time you take an action that doesn't work, you have successfully narrowed down the path to what does work. Thomas Edison famously didn't fail 1,000 times to invent the light bulb. He simply found 1,000 ways how not to make one. This isn't just a clever play on words, it is a fundamental shift in perspective. When you are in motion, failure is just data. It is the universe giving you a course correction. The only true failure is the cessation of movement. If you fall down and stay down, you have failed. If you fall down, learn why you tripped, and get back up, you have actually succeeded in gaining wisdom that the person sitting on the sidelines will never possess. The power of taking action also requires us to master our internal environment. We are often held hostage by our moods. We say, "I'll do it when I feel like it," or "I'm just not feeling inspired today." This is a dangerous way to live because feelings are fickle. They are like the weather, changing without warning or reason. If your actions are tied to your emotions, your life will be as inconsistent as the wind. The elite performers of the world, the athletes, the artists, the CEOs, do not wait for inspiration to strike. They rely on discipline. Discipline is the ability to honor a commitment you made to yourself long after the mood you made it in has left you. It is the act of taking action because you said you would, not because you feel like it. When you act in spite of your feelings, you are exercising the highest form of human freedom. You are proving that your will is stronger than your biology. This creates a psychological armor. When you show up to work on your dream on the days you are tired, sad, or frustrated, you are building a version of yourself that is unstoppable. You are teaching your brain that your goals are non-negotiable. Furthermore, we must address the paralysis of choice. In our modern world, we are often overwhelmed by too many options. We worry that by taking one path, we are missing out on 10 others. This FOMO, fear of missing out, keeps us rooted in place, staring at the crossroads until we are old and gray. The power of action lies in the courage to choose. Even a wrong choice is often better than no choice at all, because movement allows for correction. You cannot steer a parked car. You have to get the wheels turning before the steering wheel has any effect. Once you are moving, even if you realize you're heading north when you should be going east, you can turn. You are already in the flow of life. You have momentum. The simple act of choosing a direction and acting on it clears the mental clutter. It focuses the mind and silences the what-ifs. Decisiveness is a muscle that only grows through the repeated action of making calls and living with the consequences. We must also talk about the social cost of action. When you begin to move, when you truly start taking massive action toward your goals, you will likely make the people around you uncomfortable. Your movement acts as a mirror, reflecting their own stagnation back at them. They may try to pull you back down, not because they are evil, but because your growth threatens the comfort of the status quo. They will call you obsessed, unrealistic, or lucky. You must realize that their criticism is not about your journey, it is about their fear. The power of taking action includes the power to walk alone if necessary. You have to be willing to be misunderstood for a long period of time. You have to be willing to be the crazy one who is working while others are partying, or the dreamer who believes in something no one else can see. Eventually, those same people will ask you how you did it. Your results will become the only argument you ever need to make. But to get to those results, you must be willing to endure the loneliness of the climb. As we deepen our commitment to action, we find that it actually simplifies our lives. Inaction is noisy. It is filled with the internal chatter of guilt, anxiety, and self-doubt. When you know you should be doing something but you aren't, it creates a cognitive dissonance that drains your energy. You spend more energy thinking about the task than it would take to actually do the task. Action, however, is quiet. When you are fully immersed in the doing, you enter a state of flow. The ego disappears, time slows down, and you become one with the work. This is where true happiness is found, not in the achievement of the goal, but in the total engagement with the process. The power of action is the power to be present. It pulls you out of the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future and drops you squarely into the only place where life actually happens, the now. By taking action, you are honoring the gift of your existence. You are saying that your life is worth the effort, that your dreams are worth the sweat, and that you are ready to see just how far you can go. As we reach the final horizon of this journey, we must confront the ultimate truth of our existence. Time is a non-renewable resource, and action is the only currency that can buy us a life of meaning. We often live as though we have an infinite supply of tomorrows. We tell ourselves that we will start the business when the kids are older, write the book after we retire, or pursue our passion once we have a certain amount of money in the bank. But the clock does not care about our plans. The power of taking action is rooted in a healthy sense of urgency. It is the realization that later is the place where dreams go to die. When we look back on our lives from the vantage point of old age, we rarely regret the things we did, even the things that ended in embarrassment or failure. What haunts the human spirit are the things we didn't do, the risks we didn't take, the words we didn't say, the actions we were too afraid to initiate. By choosing action today, you are essentially preempting future regret. You are giving your future self the gift of a story worth telling. The compounding effect of action over a lifetime is nothing short of miraculous. We live in a society that worships the quantum leap, the big break, and the overnight success. But these are largely myths constructed for television. Real lasting power is built through the accumulation of small, seemingly insignificant acts of courage performed consistently over decades. If you improve by just 1% every day through focused action, you don't just become 365% better in a year. Due to the laws of compounding, you become nearly 37 times better. This is the interest rate of the soul. Every time you choose to take action instead of making an excuse, you are depositing a small amount of equity into your character. Over time, the interest on that equity builds. You become a person of substance, a person who carries weight in the world. You become someone that others can rely on because you have proven through thousands of small actions that you are a force to be reckoned with. This compounding effect is why the gap between the successful and the unsuccessful seems so vast. It isn't because one person is 1,000 times more talented than the other. It's because one person refused to stop moving, and the math of the universe did the rest. Furthermore, we must recognize that action is the ultimate form of self-care. We often think of self-care as relaxation, spa days, or taking a break. And while rest is a vital part of the cycle of action, true self-care is the discipline of doing what needs to be done to build a life you don't need to escape from. It is taking action on your finances so you aren't stressed about bills. It is taking action on your health so you have the energy to play with your grandchildren. It is taking action on your creative impulses so you don't feel the suffocating weight of unexpressed potential. When you take action, you are respecting yourself. You are acknowledging that your goals are valid and that you are worthy of the effort required to achieve them. This builds a deep internal sense of peace. The most exhausted people in the world are not those who are working hard. They are those who are doing nothing while knowing they should be doing something. That mental weight is far heavier than the physical toll of any labor. Action provides the release of that tension. It clears the subconscious and allows you to sleep with the satisfaction of a day well spent. We must also consider the ripple effect of our actions. We do not live in a vacuum. Every time you take a bold step toward your potential, you are unconsciously giving others permission to do the same. Your action is a beacon. When a person sees their friend, their parent, or their neighbor finally take the leap and start that project they've talked about for years, something shifts in their own mind. They begin to ask, if they can do it, why can't I? You become a living testimonial to what is possible. This is how movements start. This is how cultures change. The power of taking action extends far beyond your own bank account or your own ego. It contributes to the collective courage of humanity. By being a person of action, you are fighting against the gravity of mediocrity that pulls at everyone. You are helping to lift the world just a little bit higher. Your legacy is not just what you leave behind in a will. It is the trail of inspiration you leave in the hearts of those who watched you move. As we conclude, I want you to visualize the two versions of your future self. The first version is the one who stayed comfortable. They played it safe, waited for the right signs, and avoided the risk of failure. They are comfortable, yes, but they are also haunted by the what-ifs. They look back on this very moment as the time they almost decided to change. The second version is the one who took action. They are scarred, they have stories of epic failures, and they have faced moments of intense doubt. But they are also vibrant, strong, and deeply satisfied. They have lived a life of color rather than grayscale. They know what they are made of because they have tested their mettle in the fires of reality. Which version do you want to meet at the end of the road? The choice is not made in a year, it is made right now. The power of taking action is the power of the now. It is the refusal to let another minute slip through your fingers like sand. The world is waiting for you to stop rehearsing and start performing. The stage is set, the lights are on, and the audience, your family, your community, and your own soul is waiting to see what you will do. Do not worry about being perfect. Do not worry about being the best. Just worry about being in motion. Movement creates its own path. Action generates its own luck. The power is not in the plan, it is in the execution. So take that step, make that choice. Breathe life into your dreams by giving them hands and feet. You have everything you need to begin. The bridge is ready to be built, and you are the only one who can lay the first stone. Your life is not something that happens to you. It is something you create through the relentless, beautiful, and transformative power of taking action. Go out and move the world.